could you possibly be saying to her? Be still, my child, while I absorb your precious life source. It's apparently a Senate rite of passage. You're not officially sworn in until Delaware Joe has felt up one female member of your immediate family. Immediate family.
Remember when comedians used to make fun of creepy child-sniffing predators in office? I remember.
What are you eating over there?
We eat depends, right? Like in the summertime we do eat more plants. But the thing is, after June 1st, like end of May, a lot of plants become poisonous. So until then, poison level is not as high, so we can pretty much eat any plants if we want. Even tree leaves are fine. But after June 1st, we have to be a lot careful what mushroom that we pick up, what plants we eat. In the fall, we eat a lot of grasshoppers.
This is what I was always told is that Marvel was people trying to be heroes and DC was heroes trying to be people.
There you go.
So like, I noticed watching the Justice League cartoons, they always refer to each other as their first given names. Batman doesn't call Superman Superman, he calls him Clark. Clark calls him Bruce. They refer to each other as people, but they are heroes. And then the interesting thing is Superman's identity is Superman, Kal-El, and his secret identity is Clark Kent. Whereas in Marvel, often it's like Peter Parker is the person and his secret identity is, or like his, the costume is Spider-Man, whereas for Superman, the costume is Clark Kent. You know what I mean?
Who are your guys' favorite superhero of all time?
Superman.
People, this is why you chain shit down on the back of a flatbed.
Man, look at all that room for activities. Man, trucks have their bumpers off the ground. We out here making money, not looking good. You little pavement princess, get over it.
People, this is why you chain shit down on the back of a flatbed.
Man, look at all that.
Freeze! Don't. Put your hands where I can see them. I'm just on a call. Drop it. Yeah, just as soon as I finish. Put it down. It's a new phone. Now. Okay. Turn around and put your hands on your head. What's this all about, officer? Okay. Put your left hand around the back of your. Yeah. Am I under arrest? You're handcuffed. Of course you're under arrest. On what charge? We'll figure that out at the station. But first, what's your head?
You're making a mistake.
Be quiet.
You're making a mistake.
I said quiet.
That's what you're going to say a couple hours from now. You're making a mistake.
Freeze!
The skin around your belly button is supplied by the 10th thoracic spinal nerve.
Hispanic male is in the passenger seat up front. It's a panel van. You can't see in the back. Driver looks like, he could be Panamanian, Hispanic of some sort. And I said, who are you guys? But I'm not used to Army guys dressed like this. I was like, what do you got in the back? You got anything in the back? And he said, I have guys in the back and they have guns. And we're trying to get to the Papal Nuncio, to where Noriega's being held. Or he went for sanctuary. And I was like, well, I'm going to have to look in the back. You get the handle, I'll go guns up, look in the back, clear it, right? It's a slider, panel van. And there's these dudes in woodland camouflage, BDUs, Protect. One guy sitting in the doorway like this, facing right at me. And he's got his U.S. flag, red, white, and blue. It's not subdued. And I can see that. Another guy I can see has one on his chest, and he's over his shoulder like this, pointing at me. All I can remember is a wall of guns looking at me. Hispanic male is in the passenger seat up front. It's a panel van.
Yes, wants to know what happens when we fall into a black hole.
You want to avoid that, first of all. Never.
There's this great thing in English that's called the Great Vowel Shift. So English started slowly shifting.
But here's what he said in Waco, among other things. He said, I built hundreds of miles of wall and completed that task totally as promised.
From being husband and wife, and even being named the perfect couple in her husband's book, to being the most formidable opponent that the CEO.
This clip is just insane to me because it shows Ari Melber of MSNBC laying out exactly what Democrats, the FBI, the CIA, and the media did to influence the outcome of the 2020 election.
If you own all of Twitter or Facebook or what have you, you don't have to explain yourself. You don't even have to be transparent. You could secretly ban one party's candidate or all of its candidates, all of its nominees, or you could just secretly turn down the reach of their stuff and turn up the reach of something else, and the rest of us might not even find out about it until after the election. Elon Musk says this is all to help people because he is just a free speech, philosophically clear, open-minded helper.
This is exactly what they did and even bragged about it. Before Elon Musk took over Twitter, they had banned several Republicans, never a Democrat. The FBI played their part by covering up possible Biden crimes by suppressing legitimate news on big tech, which they did by telling them it was Russian disinformation. This clip is just insane to me because it shows Ari Melber of MSNBC laying out exactly what Democrats, the FBI, the CIA, and the media did to influence the outcome of the 2020 election.
If you own all of Twitter or Facebook or what have you, you don't have to explain yourself. You don't even have to be transparent. You could secretly ban one party's candidate or all of its candidates, all of its nominees, or you could just secretly turn down the reach of their stuff and turn up the reach of something else, and the rest of us might not even find out about it until after the election. Elon Musk says this is all to help people because he is just a free speech, philosophically clear, open-minded helper.
This is exactly what they did and even bragged about it. Before Elon Musk took over Twitter, they had banned several Republicans, never a Democrat. The FBI played their part by covering up possible Biden crimes by suppressing legitimate news on big tech, which they did by telling them it was Russian disinformation. This clip is just insane to me because it shows Ari Melber of MSNBC.
What's in it for the women, though?
Well, what sort of partner do you want? You want an overgrown child? Or do you want someone to contend with that's going to help you? And
So you're saying women have some sort of duty to sort of help fix the crisis of masculinity?
It depends on what they want. It's exactly how I laid it out. Like, women deeply want men who are competent and powerful. And I don't mean power in that they can exert tyrannical control over others. That's not power. That's just corruption. Power is competence. And why in the world would you not want a competent partner? Well, I know why, actually. You can't dominate a competent partner. So if you want domination...
Want to dominate, is that what you're saying?
No, I'd say women who have had their relationships impaired with men and who are afraid of such relationships will settle for a weak partner because they can dominate. But it's a suboptimal solution.
Do you think that's what a lot of women are doing?
I think there's a substantial minority of women who do that. And I think it's very bad for them.
Control 7 out of 19 requesting an RA unit, Palmetto and Mateo. Adverse vehicle, CT.
Stay still. Oh man, I think he got into an artery. There's a lot of blood.
Here, you can use this scarf and pen to make a tourniquet.
Thank you.
Place it 2 inches above the...
Well, I was happy to die at 27. I was happy to finish, that was it. Nothing or nobody could bring me back. Not my wife and kids didn't care.
Customer states, my bus has a slow throttle response and is lacking power. Help.
Mechanic says, come over here. Let me do some basic checks starting with your air filter. Let's check your restriction gauge. Uh-oh.
You are wasting your time. These buses get a PM regularly. In fact, they just replaced the filter last week. I know you are just going to try to upsell me a filter.
You said last week? Huh?
Can you just blow it out? Customer states, my bus has a slow throttle response and is lacking power. Help.
Gotta be nerve-wracking, like going up to the counter
and not knowing if that money's going to pass or not? Like, were you ever in a situation where it didn't pass, or did it just pass every single time?
I'd go to a store multiple times, and eventually they found out that the bills were fake, and then were looking for them. And if I went to a store 10 times over the course of, say, 2 weeks, the last, few times I went there would start to get sketchy. One grocery store I went to, the cashier told me, like, I broke a $100 bill with this girl, and then like a few days later, a week later, I went back and it was the same cashier. And she like even said, she was like marking it with the pen and then holding it up and looking for the strip and marking it again and all this. And she said to me like, oh, I just received a counterfeit bill, so I'm just double checking everything, but she still accepted it. But that, after stuff like that, I just wouldn't go back to that store again.
Gotta be nerve-wracking, like going up to the counter and not knowing if that money's gonna pass or not. Like,
Let's talk about one of the most illegal knives you can carry. And this time, I'm not talking about a gravity knife or an OTF trench knife. This time, I'm talking about the M48 Cyclone. The M48 Cyclone has 0 utilitarian purposes. This is made specifically for combat. It has an 8-inch tri-edged spiraling dagger. Overall, it's 13.5 inches long, and at the tail, there's a skull crusher pommel. I, for one, would not want to be on the receiving end of the M48 Cyclone. This thing is just nasty. And usually I'm against making any bladed weapon illegal to carry, but this one I'm not so sure. What do you guys think? Let's talk about one of the most illegal knives you can carry. And this time I'm not talking about a gravity knife or an OTF trench knife. This time I'm talking about the M48 Cyclone.
I wanted to watch the latest SpaceX rocket launch with you guys. This is the Starship. It's a huge rocket, and as you can see, it is now taking off right now. What's really interesting, though, is it's struggling there for a bit. You see, it looks like it's gonna tear over, dude. But the amount of thrust power required to get this huge thing off the ground is just blowing my mind. Like, I've been watching this stuff since I was a kid, the NASA, the space shuttles and stuff. And what we're doing now is blowing my mind. Now, I want to say this thing does explode, and we're going to get to that. But they kind of had an idea that was going to happen. They just wanted to test if they could get past certain stages. You got to blow up some rockets to get some data. But, yes, here's where it blows up. I wanted to watch the latest SpaceX rocket launch with you guys. This is the Starship.
In New York, a third of all the shoplifting cases are by 327 in a city of 8 million because they keep getting returned to the street, which has to be terrible for the morale of the cops, that they keep arresting people and the same people. It's Groundhog Day for them, like Chicago. Like most of the shootings are young black men killing other young black men. Is that not correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Why doesn't anybody talk about that? Why aren't there 100 giant black celebrities who would have the respect of those people saying, what are you doing to yourselves? Why are you killing each other? 85% of black students lack proficiency in reading skills. People who can't read, yes, they're going to have problems with gainful employment. And it seems like, a lot of times the solutions that come from the left seem symbolic. They don't seem like we're actually addressing what really needs to be done, is get kids learning, get them reading, get them able to have a job. In New York, a third of all by 327 people in a city of 8 million because they keep getting returned to the street, which has to be terrible for the morale of the cops, that they keep arresting people and the same people. It's Groundhog Day for them, like Chicago. Like most of the shootings are young black men killing other young black men. Is that not correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
What is...
My grandpa was a John Deere guy. The reason he was a John Deere guy is great-grandpa went to buy his first tractor, and he wanted a Fordson. You ever heard of a Fordson?
Yeah.
They were cheap. That's why he wanted it. It wasn't because he was a diehard, I'm going to be a Fordson guy. It was just like, well, this is cheap.
Sure.
And the John Deere dealer sold Fordson and Deere, and he said, I will not sell you that Fordson. Because he goes, you're not going to be the one driving it. He says, I know you're going to stick the kids on that tractor, and they are not big enough to be able to push in the clutch. And a Fordson tractor was so light that if they could get stuck, sometimes they would flip over backward rather than spin the wheels in the mud.
Oh, wow.
So he said this GP had a hand clutch. You know, that a kid could stand up and grab the hand clutch and run that. My grandpa was a John Deere guy. The reason he was a John Deere guy...
Are you not entertained? This is kind of unbelievable. I mean, how did CNN allow this on the air? It completely debunks the media, the Democrats, and Biden's claims of voter suppression, and the need for the deceptively named voting rights bill. This should end all of it, but we know it won't.
As he has thus far presented voting rights as a morally right or morally decrepit choice, the side of right or the side of racism. First of all, because more people voted than ever before in the last election. So to just broadly talk about voter suppression may miss that very crucial point. New York is one of the most reliably Democratic states in the United States, and New York requires people to request absentee ballot, just like the new Georgia law does. Georgia allows anyone to request an absentee ballot. New York does not. In New York, it's actually more restrictive. There are specific guidelines as to who can request an absentee ballot. New Yorkers voted down a constitutional amendment that would allow anyone to request an absentee ballot. And let's take a look at early voting. Georgia, the new law, allows for 17 days of early voting. New York only has 9.
This is kind of unbelievable. I mean, how did
they give you a nickname at all? We had a lot of nicknames for prison guards.
Give me the nickname Flash. They used to throw nets to pass shit. What I would do is I would make a game out of it. Would stand at the top of the company, watch these guys fish. And one day, I played sports in high school and in college. I played football and baseball. So one day I was standing at the top of the company and I said to the guys working with me, I said, I'm going to go and get it. I said, I'm going to catch it. Promise you. And they're like, no fucking way, man. There's no way. There's no way you're catching that. Like, you probably ain't even that fast, whatever. I said, okay. So the line comes down. It's getting there. I see the dude, the inmate with the broom trying to grab it. And I take off. And when I take off, that's probably the fastest I ever moved since playing sports. Just take off. The inmates in the front couple cells, they literally look like a blur. Actually catch it.
They give you a nickname at all? We had a lot of nicknames.
The most redneck states in America. By data. Louisiana's in the top 10 for dropouts and trailer parks. But Louisiana also has the second most Walmarts per capita in America. Uh-oh. I drive through West Virginia all the time. There are some of the most hillbilly people tucked back in them hollers. I'm surprised they didn't rank first. Practically every Jenny has Mountain Dew in his veins at some point in the day. I know this one's true. I was just there. You don't even have to use any statistics. Missouri is full of catfish catching preg teens. There's one big reason Arkansas is on here. It starts with M and ends in Obel. Arkansas has the most Walmarts of all, too. But their high school dropout rate's only the 18th highest. If you didn't study so hard, you'd have won. Everybody in Mississippi is some shaded neck. A quarter of people don't graduate, and 15% of all homes are of the mobile variety. It wasn't even close. Damn it. Most redneck states in America.
And she said, hold on a minute. And she leaves, goes back, and there's this captain that comes out and looks at me. I'm in starched jungle fatigues. And I got ranger scroll and my shaved head and, spit shine jungle boots. And captain looks at me and looks at my name tag and looks down at some paperwork. It says, Corporal Porus, is that how you say your name? I was like, roger that, sir. He's like, hold on a minute. So he goes to get a major. And meanwhile, while they're going to get this major, there's people in the finance building that are behind me, and I recognize a lot of activity. It's just a pay cage. It's a finance section. It's personnel. We're just going. There's MPs that come in, and the major comes in, comes back to the cage, and said, "Corporal Porus, you're going to have to go with these gentlemen." I said, well, according to this, you're AWOL. And she said, "Hold on a minute." And she leaves, goes back, and there's this captain that comes out and looks at.
Hey man, you got time for a walk-in?
Sure, man. What do you got?
I got this one here. Hey man, you got time for a walk-in?
Sure, man. What do you got?
I got this one here.
After racist
Conspiracy theorist is probably the single worst thing that you can be called in our society. The minute that you get labeled a conspiracy theorist, pretty much everything that you have to say ceases to be taken seriously. By the left, certainly, but even by many in the center and on the right. Yet, easy as it is to destroy someone with accusations of conspiracy theorism, the same as with accusations of racism, it is much easier to ruin someone by calling him a conspiracy theorist than it is to define precisely what a conspiracy theory is. After racist, conspiracy theorist is probably the single worst thing that you can be called.
I don't know what you heard about me. This can't get a job.
Something that I thought was impossible just happened. Democrats went so insane that Joe Biden is actually siding with Republicans.
I did talk to the team, and we have a couple of things that I just want to lay out for all of you and on what the DC bill does. It reduces maximum penalties for offenses like murders and other homicides, armed home invasion burglaries, armed carjackings, as I mentioned, armed robberies, unlawful gun possession, and some sexual assault offenses.
What you just heard KJP lay out there is what Democrats voted for, not against. They voted for.